commented that salmon color, which relates to the architectural concept of Mediterranean Tuscan look. I believe for this project to be the contemporary feel that we want for the city center, if we can revisit that salmon color, then maybe the salmon color needs to be the dark color like you have in the front elevation. It's just a consideration because as I look from the front to the rear, I see the south elevation could look like a concept you would find in whether it's in Miami or Southern California. But I think in keeping with the nice project across the street with the city center, I think it needs to be reviewed as far as the use of the color materials. However, I think the massing looks good. The use of the roof canopies and the overhangs works well. The other concept I want to discuss is the punch windows. Perhaps the ribbon windows, for me, the punch windows, maybe a bit much. I'm not sure if we continue the ribbon windows to keep that contemporary look that you have in the front elevation. So again, just bringing up the 360-degree philosophy that we want to enhance in these prominent projects. The other comment I want to make is the signage. I think the blade sign might give it a look of something you'd find in the nostalgic 40s. It's not in keeping with the look of the contemporary feel. The blade sign, I think the wall signage, probably the rear lit letters probably would be more conducive for this project. But again, I'd like to open the floor to the other board members. I'm just throwing out some comments. And one more comment, the corner elevation, as you with the grand stats, I think is well articulated. However, that corner elevation, not sure. The balconies probably for those suites works well because I like the ribbon glass and I'd like to see more treatment. I'm not sure if the hierarchy of the building at that corner, but again, I think overall it's a nice project. I do think the north elevation is done very nice. It's very contemporary and probably the use of that salmon color is very minimal. So I'm okay with that. So these are just comments and just considerations.
So Mar, this is Cindy. I just wanted to help in terms of facilitating the conversation today. So we do have a series of questions in the staff report that will guide us through site layout, building architecture, signage, and the other items. You've brought up a couple of comments related to building architecture right now, and I see a couple of board members with their hands raised, probably wishing to speak related to those items. So perhaps we'll start with building architecture since that's the bulk of your comments. Why don't we start with building architecture first? We'll come back to site layout after discussing architecture, and then we'll go into landscape and signage after that. So perhaps we can start with limiting comments right now on architecture.
All right, so for building architecture, questions I'd like to raise is the proposed building architecture appropriate in design scale and massing? Is the proposed architectural design theme appropriate for this site and consistent, compatible with the established architectural styles in the project vicinity? So I kind of brought up some comments. I'd like to open if there are comments from other board members.
Okay.
I don't determine which board member.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave.
All right, happy to accommodate. Landscape architect speaking, so grain of salt. But I think Mar's comments are well spoken in that the north elevation has a lot more interest. But, you know, I agree with Cindy. If we talk to the site first, it would help. But looking at I'm going to try to draw on this, so see if this works. To me, this, I don't want to be blue here. I want to be another color. So sorry. So this area here, trying to get a red color. Well, it wants to be blue. Anyway, so this area here,
Ryan, have you shared your screen?
there, can you see the screen there?
There we go.
Yes.
So that corner to me is the key, because that's what you will see facing city center. This elevation is rather invisible to the public, but this corner, I think, wants to be, and I think you're starting to do it down here. So this to me wants to turn the corner and become sort of the focal point, if you will, of the architecture. To me, looking at your elevation, it isn't symmetrical. I'm in the upper left elevation. So I think you're already moving that way, although the building layout and the footprint is symmetrical. But the glazing here is more interesting and intricate than this. So to me, if this thing becomes sort of a linchpin, if you will, and it turns the corner, you know, your art is doing that, your seat wall, which we can talk about in a minute. But to me, this is really the key. And so it would maybe help energize what Mara's point was too, about this elevation being a little quiet. And if I were to energize it, I don't know, but if you took these lines around and made this unique, if you took the roof, which I like, and maybe there's a roof here, the floating roof really helps. Maybe there are ways to take this piece and make it that focal point. It's sort of everything radiates around. Then I'm not so worried about that being quiet, because really what it wants to do is talk across the street to the city center, in my mind. And I think the art, we can talk about this later. I think these stairs are not sittable, but if you made it a series of verticals and horizontals and risers, it would be a place that, I don't know whether we can still sit next to each other anymore in the future, but make it a little more usable. You could walk up there, yes, but maybe you walk and sit, and what other things can you do on that corner? Because this corner really, again, is the connecting point between all places, and that's your movement over there toward the city center and the future town square that's going to sit there. Other than that, I agree. I like the architecture. I'm not too worried about the scale. I'm not too worried about the massing. The mass facing the future residential to the south is okay, because it's broken into, because of the U shape, it's broken into smaller scale elements. Eventually, those residential units there will look back at this. I'm not worried about the north elevation. The east elevation looks at the Iron Horse Trail and a large park. And plus there will be some other residential units there. So that scale is probably the one I would look at more closely. You know, the setbacks are good. They're more than maybe you would need, but I think the theme for the master plan is large bands of landscape surrounding architecture. So I think it's doing a good job of that. I think the materials are fine. I'm okay with the color, but I hear what Mara's saying. I think there's some reality, you know, in the color blocking, and maybe the what I'd call the intensities of the color. I don't know. Those are some thoughts.
Thanks, Dave.
Trying to get my hand down here, sorry. Oh, well. So I think Warren had a hand up, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, Warren.
I'd like to. Okay. So looking at the elevation, and I think the board members have said it very well in the way they have spoken about the front elevation of the north elevation. There's a lot of undulation across the facade. There is up, down, ins and outs coming from the shape of the building. And to reiterate Mar's comment on the view the east or the west elevation facing city center, it doesn't seem like it has the same change in plane and articulation and height change along the facade. So it seems like there is a sort of, it definitely feels like a side elevation versus a front elevation. For a building of this scale and size, it seems like there should be more done with the one facing the road. The one facing the entry, that's where there has been a lot of effort and a lot of sort of force put in between to the facade, where on the west elevation, or the one on our view looking east, is it's flat. It doesn't create any sort of dynamic movement across the space. There are subtle movements with the balconies that are recessed into the space, into the shape. I also agree with David that the art sculpture seems out of place and doesn't meet the context of the building. If it's for the building, it really does read as a separate entity. And I think that the identity of the art needs to either be combined with the building and pull in certain elements and make it congruent, in congruence with the building, or it needs to be varied and different completely from the building. Right now, it looks like a piece of art slapped on a piece of concrete. And I'm sure as they move forward, this will be further developed, but these are comments for suggestions in the future. Ryan, you're in control of the screen, correct?
Yep.
Can you please bring up page A2.03 and focus in on the upper left-hand corner? Oh, go back one.
This one?
One more. Forward. There you go. So I would like to discuss the material and the materiality used on the building. Can you blow up that corner,
Yeah, which,
referencing the one in the upper left-hand corner of the screen? I'd like to discuss the different materials being used. And I don't think that they are going to achieve, I don't think they're going to achieve the look that this building really needs to address, because this building is 5 stories tall and it's supposed to be sort of this glamorous piece, and all of the elements of the siding are horizontal in nature, from the 12 by 48 inch plank going horizontally, illustrated in the number 3, the horizontal siding shown in square 1, and the horizontal banding, which is a wood plank over a silver siding, which is that salmon color shown on the rendering. It is in number 2. These are all horizontal linear lines that I think are actually going to make your building feel more squat and fat than you want it to. My suggestion would be you can interchange these, but maybe change the orientation and direction of them. The other would be the other suggestion would be in the lap siding you have, or not the lap siding, but the corrugated box metal number 1. Instead of having that as a horizontal, I would maybe suggest, because you're using it in such a big element, it might be better to consider that using it in a wider lap instead of the small, tight box frame. They have other options on their website for different material siding, and they also have a vertical option. I would suggest taking a look at the vertical option. I know that might be there might be a concern of having seams at every 10 feet, I think is what they come in panel size. They might come in longer, but I think that that would be help emphasize the movement of the building. So you wouldn't have a bunch of horizontal lines creating a bunch of low feeling boxes on your building. The other thing that I would like to comment on materials of is that material 2 with the Restia, I think is the name of it, is called, if I'm understanding correctly, that is the planks that are not wood, but more plastic wood, and they milled. I would strongly advise against using that material. That material has been, is not dimensionally stable. It has been used in Fallon Gateway Center, and it needs to be installed with a fine hand. That one is, if you have that installed improperly, it will warp. You'll get oil canning across a wood member, which often causes a distressed look or cheapens the look of the building. I would suggest, if you're going to do something like you have done, use a Trespa panel or another dimensionally stable installation. If you need an example of this, go to Fallon Gateway Center at when it's 100+ degrees outside, and you will see that long planks of wood are warping along the facade that's in the sun. So my suggestion would be to change the material into more stable material and potentially lose the metal behind it and use a painted background of or as part of the rain screen. One of the other things, if I could digress or maybe switch gears to the site plan. Ryan, could you please bring up the site plan you had earlier, or a site plan where we see the parking?
Is this okay?
I want to see the parking above. Let me see.
Oh, okay.
Let me see what sheet would be good. If you could bring up sheet L300.
Yeah.
That one's perfect.
That one work? Okay.
That will work. I have a concern on the layout for the parking, and I'm going to annotate on top of this. I am going to be green, or no, I will be orange. That should show up well.
You can borrow my red, it's okay.
I think what would be beneficial for the layout is if we had a walk mid-block, because you're going to have everybody coming down through the parking lot, circling through the stair, and then coming across here, want to cross right there into the entry of the lobby. People are not going to want to walk down and around and in. If we could do something in this area that is similar to what we have mid-block on the city center, I think that would help benefit safety for pedestrians and would help the overflow and events participants getting across the space safely. I think that
I'm
was
not
all.
sure it's the best place to bring them in with all the drop off and the baggage and the FedEx trucks and things in there. It's a real, I agree, it's a problem, but I'm not sure that's the solution. That's a chaotic spot for pedestrians.
I think it's one of the, I know people are human nature. They're not going to want to walk all the way down to the intersection to come across.
Yeah.
As a father, I try to instill that into my son, but rarely do other people do it. And so I know that there's going to be just people doing the quick half run shuffle across that intersection. And if we had at least a marker there, I know it's going to be a busy street. It's going to cause a little bit of congestion, but it would save a lot of people from, or keep a lot more people safe.
Yeah, this is more, I'm not sure if putting a route that goes from this point here with the pavement that takes you across this and back out this way to the parking where pedestrians walk, somehow to create this nucleus here so that you don't force people to walk straight if you need to keep this closed in. But something with the paving that takes people around like so. I don't know if you see the green.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, so you create this pedestrian path in a circular motion. But again, there's traffic going to go in and out. The people take the least resistance and just walk straight. If we don't have a clearly indicated pavers, to distinguish from the AC paving, something that creates a visual for pedestrians to walk in that path if we want to keep them from walking straight from point A to point B, straight across the plant strip. I don't
Ryan,
paving should be changed in this whole area.
hey, Ryan, this is Warren. Can you remind me, is this going to stay open? Sorry, this area here?
That's part of a future park site.
Okay. And then the road continues on and around and loops back to Bollinger, right?
Correct. Yeah, right here it's only going to community remote, and then there'll be another future site off over.
Okay.
So since we're talking about the site, there was a question, does the board support the site layout, building orientation, and vehicle pedestrian circulation? I think we're talking about that now. I think we're focused on the main entrance to the hotel. And I think we all agree there's to be addressed for the pedestrian path, so it's clearly indicated by means of direction, pavers, materials. That's a good thing to bring up, Warren. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, if you want to talk about the site, I think there's some other elements. If you want me to dive into that now, or what's the comfort, Mar?
Why don't you go ahead, Dave, if you have additional comments on this site.
All right. I think, there's a proposed, let me try to get my red back here. As you know, there's a proposed, why am I gonna, sorry. My color doesn't want to work, but. I'm sorry about that. Why am I getting no color out of this? Are all the colors used up?
I'm trying to undo mine so that you can have red.
I know, it worked before.
Try it now, David.
No, I'm not getting a, so I hit the pen, I hit the color, and I hit the red.
Did you try blue?
Let me try the blue. Oh, there it goes. Try the blue and I get the red. So that's how life works. There's a proposed bridge that's going to cross here, and the bridge crosses over the roadway and hits grade. Lauren, you can help me out. Hits grade somewhere here. So there's a lot of pedestrian movement along the future Iron Horse Trail, especially with the bridge. There's the opportunity to connect to Central Park somewhere here. There's a proposed town square here. The city center has actually one of the more successful, in my mind, an outdoor eating area here. So that the master plan, there's a major gravity flow in my mind here, major destination here and here, major destination here and here. So it just exacerbates the problem that Warren brought up earlier. So to me, this connection from the biggest park to the most dense part of town needs to be more than just existing vegetation. And when you do that, you're going to have people coming this way, that way. So the connection may want to do that, and you may want to treat this entire area to really slow the car, even though I know everybody's coming to park. So these links really become critical to make the town square successful. So, and I think to enter anywhere in here, we do too many of these. The chaos in there, nobody knows where to go. Where do you park? Where do I stop? How do I get my bags out of the car? All the Uber vehicles coming in there, the self-driving cars that are going to be running into everything. To me, this is a very difficult zone. I'm not sure you'll ever successfully get that. So maybe there's a way to try and take this and try to get people there. I'm just thinking out loud. If you know what a Woonerf is, maybe this is a Woonerf, which is a shared pedestrian bicycle traffic. It doesn't reduce the number of cars, but it slows them. Because this whole zone, in my mind, is a really strong promenade with a very important node that makes all these links together. So this whole zone, in my mind, I don't know that it works. It's auto-centric. It's really geared to just another road, and it doesn't really create a link. So somehow all of those are connected in pot. And since we're talking site, as you know, the wind is really amazing here, and Venturi, being what it is going to take 5 stories of wind and dump it right there. So that pool, I would set up a concession to sell blankets and other things near that pool. That pool is going to be trouble. Maybe it's partly glass enclosed, or I'm not sure what you do with it. We're looking at pools from a social point of view and the spread of virus. And I think there just needs to be some serious study about that pool. Maybe the park can help solve it by deflecting wind in some way. But we get really strong west to east winds, and that's a perfect spot for Venturi. I don't know, those are key things. I agree that this elevation, you might, well, I don't know how you solve it, but to me, this is really a key cornerstone to make this work and connect our density to the park, and to make it work with the Iron Horse Trail, which I believe will get a lot of really great use when that bridge is built. There will be twice the people that are out there now.
Mar,
Right.
Also
sorry,
bike.
Mar, this is Cindy. So
Yes.
I know that we're kind of jumping around here, but we're going to need to perhaps be a little bit more succinct in our conversation. We do have 2 other items that are also on the agenda today. So perhaps if we could just confirm if there are any other site layout questions or comments. I've already captured the conversation related to the pedestrian crossing and the access point. So were there any other comments related to site layout at this point, or anything else on building architecture? If not, then we can move on to landscape and signage.
And one more point on the site, if I may. I think just to build on what David was, is the pedestrian corridors. So if I'm correct, that the city center has 2 blocks of buildings like so. Gosh, is this like there's a parking lot here, but is this the corridor here between the city center? Here, so
Mar, that's about right, maybe somewhere near that sidewalk.
So the thing is, you won't make people walk to the parking lot to cross here. They're going to want to come through here and access to this point. So I figured this is where this access road kind of leads into the city center. So just keep in mind to address the connection between the city center, and so that it's not just one point to cross at this point, or Bollinger. There's probably a midpoint crossing at this level, but I think I'll reserve that for the public works to see if that really is a viable intersection for the city center to connect with this site, which is the hotel and the future condominiums. That's
Okay.
all I have on the site. Is there any other site?
I just wanted to add one quick comment. This is Lauren. The east-west connection that David was highlighting there is most certainly part of the comments that were provided on the master plan, and is part of the connection scheme that was developed for the master plan. Ryan, could you highlight for me where the property line is for this particular parcel?
Oh, it's it's right here.
Yeah, so really we're talking about improvements that need to be coordinated, but that are not specifically associated with this application. So I do understand the desire to connect that, and those are all comments that went forward on the larger master plan. And so it's something that we're looking at, but most certainly the connections to that are important. So I just add that for reference.
All right, thanks. Is there any other comments on the site? We can go and jump back to building architecture. I know initially I made some comments and Warren and David added some comments to the architectural elevations. If we could just go back one more time to the elevation facing the city center and then the south elevation.
Oh, south.
Okay, so the east elevation or the west elevations here. So if we look at, if we can look at this elevation facing the city center, it really looks like a side elevation. I think the treatment that was made on the north, it's really articulated. I think maybe in the side it's missing the dark color, so that we try to carry that or actually the 180-degree philosophy on this building. And if I look in the rear, it doesn't have any bearing to what I see in the front. And I think what's missing here is maybe the darker contrasting color. I don't see that here in the south elevation. Anyway, that's just, again, my comment in this south elevation. I see the light colored is at the plank wood and the other lighter materials, but I haven't seen any articulation of the dark. So anyway, that's all I have on the architecture. And again, back on this blade sign, we need to look at that. Any other comments on the architectural? If none, we can move on to signage, which I think I brought up a bit on the signage. There are comments on the signage. Does the board support the proposed building wall design or wall sign, canopy sign, and blade sign in terms of design, size, and location?
I have no problem with it, personally. I think it's in scale with the building and works with the proportions of the architectural masses.
Can you bring up the other drawing you just had, Ryan, please?
This one?
Yeah, I think this one illustrates it quite well. I agree with Mar on the sign itself. It really feels planted on. It'd be better if it was either attached fully to the building as it is projected out from the building now with just what looks like 4 connected posts. That really gives it that sort of planted on feeling. It really needs to be integrated. I feel it should be more integrated into the design of the building and more emphasis rather than a fin sign the way it is. It could say a fin sign for the punctuation down to Bollinger. That's understandable that you want to have it as a standoff piece, that it really presents itself, but it needs to be stronger attached to the building versus floating off. If it's going to be floating off that way, then maybe you do it more definite where there's a continuous solid material that's a different dimension than the fin itself. But the way it's done now, it really feels planted onto the exterior facade versus solidly attached. I mean, it seems efficient. And this building really doesn't need to be efficient. This building really needs to be iconic and beautiful next to the city center, which is sort of the token icon piece that it is. So to have a Finn sign attached at only 4 locations, planted onto the building next to it, it's a real sort of letdown. So the sign itself should have the same gravitas as the city center and the building it's attached to.
And just one more point, maybe with the signage, somehow that corner, which is visible as you approach from Bollinger and head north on Camino Ramon, it seems like that corner, which is a solid white massive wall with punch-out windows, looks like needs to be a glass mass to bring that contemporary feel. And I'm not sure by doing that if the signage can be incorporated better somehow. I know it's symmetrical when you look at the south elevation, I get it, but somehow because it faces the city center, somehow that corner needs to be addressed. And I'm not sure if it's making those punch windows more of a solid massive glass and mimic some of the glass elements you have in the front elevation. And then in the courtyard elevation, we have a massive glass that goes from the roof canopy all the way down to the first floor. It seems like some kind of element there in the corner, since it faces the street, might help with that sign. Any other comments? If not, we can move to the landscape and public art. Does the landscape plan provide appropriate species selections and sufficient quantities, sizes, and variety of plant materials?
Yeah, I can start out on that if you want, and then feel free, John, to speak up here. I'm a little worried about the oaks and the sudden oak death. You know, this is very oak centric with live oaks and valley oaks. Maybe if there's new data that shows that the sudden oak death is not the threat that it was 5 years ago, but I haven't.
Uh-oh.
Did we lose David?
Looks like we lost David.
Okay. Should I pick up?
Why don't you go ahead and talk until we wait for Dave to come back?
Structured parking.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
Sorry.
We lost you for about 20 seconds.
Uh-oh. Must have been words of wisdom. Anyway, I'm pretty much in concert with the plant palette. I think some of the small, if you zone in on the Camino Ramon, there's some little small berm-like areas with plants that seem a little out of scale to me. You can see those, yeah, see the, you know, where it says stipta, you know, some of those little grass pockets. I would rather see 150 or 200 feet of stipta, not 20 feet. And I think that's where the Alex has gone with his planting over the last 4 or 5 major projects, which I think is very successful. So maybe this wants to mirror those plant palettes a little stronger and not be so curvilinear and cute, but more powerful. But I'm not too worried about it. I mean, those things can happen later. Palette's fine. The tree massings seem okay. The tree massings are really for the street, and they're not responding particularly to the architecture. If it were me, I would look at the volumes and the pop outs and the pop-ins and say, okay, the sculptural aspects of the architecture should inform the patterns of the landscape a little more, because right now it's the street, you know, and the street is fine to be consistent with that, but I don't know, stronger, more geometric, simpler shrub and ground plane massing would, I think, be more appropriate to what's gone on in this area for the last 5 years. John, any thoughts?
Okay. Do you see me more?
Yes, I could.
Okay. I agree with what David was saying. I like the palette. I like the mix of evergreen and deciduous plant materials. And I think what I like most about it is that there still are the plant materials from the city center that are brought across for this project. And I think it is a little bit more playful in its allocation of what goes where here. There's a lot of outdoor use areas, and I think the plant palette is broad enough that it will have the ability to have strength and yet still have kind of immediate appeal and Four Seasons color and texture interest. So I like it.
I see. I don't have comments on the landscape. Warren, did you have anything to add?
No, I am okay. Thank you.
Okay. Comments on the public art? I see that we're proposing something in the prominent corner with the steps, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, we're only dealing with the location right now.
This hasn't been finalized. What about site lighting? Any comments? It's for me, I have no comments since the project's really still premature. We didn't have the ability to review that later in the project, or should we be doing that now?
I think if you have general comments on site lighting, that would be helpful. Certainly, as we get through the project, we'll continue to look for additional enhancements on lighting. But if you have any general comments on lighting, we'll certainly take those now.
Okay, I have my general comments. Being that this is a hotel, I'm sure that there's going to be, the building will be lit from the ground up so that the building is visible in the evening. Is that so? And then some of the landscape will be highlighted, but I think the goal for the lighting here is to minimize light pollution. And so it's safe for pedestrians to walk in and out of this site. So low level lighting and less lights that pollutes the air, so that you don't get to see a lot of that from on the higher elevations in the surrounding residential. However, I think it's an opportunity to light the hotel building, as we see with similar hotels like this in other locales. That's all comments I have.
I have comments or questions, I guess. If is the landscape architect on?
Excuse me?
Do you guys know if the landscape architect is in attendance? No?
Yeah, he actually had a question earlier. So I think maybe he was at least connected at one point.
Okay, because I guess my concern is looking at the lighting plan, there's a lot of these SG ground mounted stainless steel that are pointing just directly up. I don't know if that's going to achieve the right look. It'd be great if they were more directionally based, because as of they currently are laid out around in the planters, just pointing in. Not sure if they're directly pointing up, or if there is. If you're looking for the sheet, it is sheet SE 2.0. And it is right after the elevations, or the 3D perspectives.
Okay, hold on.
I think it's 33 in our packet, 34. Yeah, that one you just moused over, 17. So here I'm going to use green, should show up. So it's this area here. that I think could use some directional lighting. And this SG, I'm not sure if it's pointing straight up. It wasn't not clear on the indication. It would be great if there could be some lighting up of the building, because this is going to be the prominent corner for Bollinger. And so, you know, we want to see more accent given to this area. You have a lot of downlights, and I'm sure this entry will glow as needed for indication of location of entry. But I think this one needs to be almost in a little bit of competition with this space here. So this one, this corner glows a little bit more with, or sorry, this corner here glows a little bit brighter, because this will be your visual sign corner post for your entry.
Okay, so if there are no other comments, I can go ahead and provide the board a summary before we take a recommendation.
Sounds good, Cindy.
Okay, so I'll start with site layout. We first started talking about the pedestrian access point from the northern parking lot and parking structure to the hotel entrance. The board recommended a need to provide a safer, more direct access point into the hotel's main entrance. There was also a comment related to the connection points from the city center site to the west of the project site, and looking at opportunities to make sure that there are connections from that east-west corner, along with potentially some enhancements further to the south. There was also a comment related to just the importance of that east-west connection from where Central Park and the bike overcrossing will be, and how that connection will be addressed from that eastern point to the western corner of the project site, and that there will be a need to provide some additional pedestrian enhancements there, along with just making sure that we're addressing the conflicts between vehicular and pedestrian crossing and traffic. Moving into building architecture, we first talked about the western elevation. The board recommended adding additional architectural enhancements, especially to the side that faces the city center, to promote a more 360-degree design. The board recommended more articulation and undulation on this this flatter elevation, perhaps looking at opportunities to make height changes to give more articulation to the building. Also looking at a darker contrasting color to give some more accents along this frontage. And then the opportunity to wrap the window glazing around to the north and south elevations, just to give it a little bit more of a front elevation feel, similar to how the front elevation currently, or the north elevation is currently styled. There was also a comment related to the south elevation, an addition of the darker accent color, bringing that into the south elevation. And then also related to color, the salmon accent color. The board recommended reviewing the color and whether or not there needed to be a darker tone to give it more of an enhancement of that color. Then we discussed the siding material. The siding, the building currently has mostly horizontal siding, and the board would recommended adding a vertical siding element or wider horizontal elements to create additional architectural interest. With just the current horizontal siding, the building looks more stocky and squat. And so adding some other horizontal and vertical elements can create some distinction in that siding. And then the last comment was related to the rustia planks. The board recommended taking a closer look at that material as it has a potential for warping. So recommended reevaluating the use of that material and something that would be more dimensionally stable. Any other comments on the building architecture?
Cindy,
Couple of site comments, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
David.
I think what I would say is the building siting needs to respond to the site context more strongly. A would be linkage between city center and Central Park for bikes and pedestrians. B, and implied in that is the way the car comes in and drops off. You know, Bishop Drive becomes that link. And I think the way the building sits works for the building, but it doesn't necessarily work for the linkage, as Warren pointed out, to the parking or the linkage to the trail in Central Park. I'm just trying to put it in more general terms. And I think the building doesn't sit well with the context of the wind and the use. And also, I think regarding signage, I think as you perceive the building coming from south to north, you know, I think the comments about the elevation and the signage and the quietness of the west elevation are related to that. So there's a first impression of the context from the south, then there's an arrival element to the north, and then the entry. So in my mind, the key restudy needs to be the context within which the building sits and how it impacts the site elements and the master plan long term. To me, those are the areas that need the greatest study.
Okay. Just real quickly, so there was a lot of information and recommendations that were provided by the board. In terms of procedures, we will provide the applicant written responses or summary of the recommendations provided by the ARB. But before we get started on that, I wanted to give the applicants, architects and landscape architects, the opportunity to ask any clarifying questions they might have. We haven't heard from them as part of this process, and I want to make sure they understand the context by which these conditions, or not conditions, but comments have been provided. So if there's any questions or clarifications, if you could raise your hand now as members of the applicants, and we can talk briefly about. I see Kevin.
And if you're ready for me, I can go ahead, but just let me know when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Please.
Great. Thank you. My name's Kevin Teague. I'm the California representative for the applicant. And thanks for all the comments. And Lauren, thanks for the summary. Obviously, we're really excited to be working with Sunset and working on this project with you. And I think the comments we heard, the way Cindy summarized them, those are all things we can work with staff and their comments and understand to move this forward. Our architect, Roger Brown, if he hasn't been promoted in the Zoom hearing, may want to address in detail a couple of the comments, or he may have some questions for you on this. So I'd like to give Roger the opportunity, but I think from the context of what we've heard, I think we'll be able to work with staff on all of these items to keep the project moving ahead, which we're real happy about in these times, to be able to move a project like this ahead. So thank you again. And then I want to turn it over to Roger if he's got some specifics for you guys.
It looks like he still might be muted, so
He's
we'll give him
muted.
a minute. Roger, can you hear us? I can unmute him. I just don't know if maybe he's away or.
I don't see a hand raised.
I know.
Well,
Hmm.
I'm going to assume by the silence that we can work it out through the response to comments and process. But we have a bit of a time pinch, so we got to keep us rolling here.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and-
Lauren, if I may, this is Kevin. Just one thing that we're hoping to clarify with you and staff, not today, is just our design intent was obviously to work within the master plan itself and be consistent with that. So we just want to make sure we're still working within that design intent in the context of these comments, which I didn't hear anything to the contrary. Just wanted to make that clear.
That is correct.
Thank you.
So I guess Cindy, go ahead and proceed with your final
Okay.
summary.
So related to signage, the board's comments on signage was just on the blade sign, that the current attachment style feels planted onto the facade and that the sign needs to be more solidly and fully attached to the building. Then we moved into the landscaping and public art. The board just wanted to recommend that the art needs to have a better relationship with the architectural style, but that you did support the location of where the art feature is. The staircases leading up to the art piece, potentially there needs to be some additional thought into how whether or not it's designed for pedestrians to sit or interact in that space, and whether or not there needs to be some additional detailing to lend itself for that. Overall, the board supported the plant palette and feels that it relates to the plant palette that is in the surrounding area. There was one comment related to the oak trees, and potentially there may be some considerations taken related to sudden oak death. So just taking a closer look at that proposed species that's identified in the landscape plan. And then there were just some general comments about the berming along Camino Ramon and the tree planting groupings. Just looking at the scale of how those tree groupings are and the geometry of where those plantings are, and just making sure that they relate to that pedestrian walkway and Camino Ramon. Then,
Cindy?
yes.
Sorry, one other nitpicky point. The risers that take you from the corner, up to the art, if those are 10-inch risers, you're 60 inches in the air, and yet it assumes you can walk flush across the back into the front lobby of the building. So either there's a missing set of stairs getting you back down to the ground, or the finished floor of the hotel, which we haven't been shown, is substantially higher than the curb level of Bishop Ranch and Camino Ramon. There's something not quite worked out there.
Okay.
Jen, real quick, this is Lauren. I heard that Roger does have some comments to make real quickly, but he does not, it's apparently muted on your side.
Oh. Let's see. I mean, I can unmute anyone, but he's unmuted now, so he should be able to make comments. I also see, it looks like Cossin raised his hand too.
Roger, you there?
Yes.
Roger? Well.
This is Costin. Can you hear me at the moment?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll just speak just momentarily? Thank you very much for all of your time and all of your comments. I really appreciate that. And also for taking such a in-depth look at the plans and responding so directly. In regards to the plant palette, we did try and bring those things across from Bishop Ranch and be in line with the master plan and the master plan planting palettes, which was where we had pulled some of the trees, the tree palette from. Definitely we'll take a look at those relative to the sudden oak death issue. And then I just wanted to note that the berming along Camino Ramon, those are actually stormwater treatment areas so those wouldn't be vertical bermed elements. And that we will, as the tree grouping, to be more in line with architecture. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, great. And then just wrapping up here, the final comments related to site lighting. The board recognizes that the building will be uplit and that the lands comments. If there are any other comments to add to the summary, I'll take those now. If not, we're looking for a recommendation this afternoon for final architectural review approval to the Planning Commission.
So any
Want to give
have
Roger
additional
one
comments? Go ahead.
Do we want to give Roger one more chance?
He's unmuted, so he should be able to speak if he can. Roger, can you hear us?
All right, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let's just move ahead.
There's any comments to Cindy's summary? If not, I motion that we proceed forward with this project with the comments as summarized by Cindy. Any seconds?
I'd second that.
Third?
Roll call.
Okay, so we have a mover and seconder. Let me go ahead. I'm going to do a roll call vote now. I'm going to start with the mover, Chair Goxiang Fiao.
Aye.
Our seconder was Vice Chair David Gates.
Aye.
And then we're going to go with Board Member Fujimura
Aye.
and Board Alternate Nickel.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-0. All right, let me go ahead. I'm just going to take a moment to remove some of these panelist members and then we'll move on here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we should be good to go now. I'll go ahead and move on to item 9.2. It is Costco Service Station, and there will be a staff report provided by Shinya Tsukamoto, Associate Planner. And Shinya, you should be, oh, there you are.
Here I am. Good afternoon. It's very interesting. My report starts on page 45 of the package. And I would like to show you or summarize the staff report with my PowerPoint presentation. Can I get the screen?
You should be able to go ahead and share it. There you go.
Where are we? This one? Do you see my thing moving here?
Yep.
Okay, so here I am. So this is the first page. Costco is proposing to demolish the existing Office Depot building, and then they're going to construct a new gas station of 32 pump stations. And then next one here will show you where the primary connection or entrance way to the project site here. And this is the primary entrance on Fostoria Way. And then Costco to the north is in the town of Danville. And there are two other connections to this project site. One is from Magnolia Square from the west, and then the other one is from the extended stay from the east. And then there is a pedestrian connection here from the Office Depot to Magnolia Square. And then there's a monument sign there, and then public art located here. That is existing public art. Okay. Now, so this is the existing Fostoria Way. Looking at the existing Office Depot monument sign. And this is going to be demolished and removed, not replaced. But this driveway here is the driveway to the Magnolia Square, but not to the Office Depot driveway. The Office Depot driveway is further down, right next to this large tree. That is the 70 feet diameter live oak that was saved from the development of existing Office Depot back in early 90s. Now, if you go around this, this is a main driveway across the street from the Costco driveway. And here's a proposed site plan, overall site plan. And here is the driveway intersection. And this is where the oak tree, live oak tree is. And the next one will show the enlargement of it. So here's the main entrance, west entrance to the Magnolia Square, east entrance to the extended stay. Now I rotated the plan here so we can see more. And now north to your right and the south to the left, and the west Magnolia Square to the top, and the extended stay is the south. Now here, well, so this is the existing condition. And what they're going to do is demolish all of this building here and make some adjustment at this part of the driveway. And all the landscaping around here will be removed. So what they're trying to do is here. Now, existing oak tree will remain, but there are two live coastal live oaks here. This is a valley oak, live oaks here, and then there are 3 other live oaks here. Those 5 will be removed, and then this portion of the land parking will be readjusted and becomes landscaping, and then widening this driveway a little bit, not a little bit. I think it is a significant widening right there. And then this monument sign will be removed. And then the existing art piece may stay or may not stay. That's still in question. And then also this pedestrian connection was provided there as part of the conditions of approval for the Office Depot to provide the pedestrian connection to the Magnolia Square. So I believe that we ought to save this connection somehow. Now here is a proposed landscape design. And then see, as you can see, the driveway is widened here. And this is the exit point. And this is the eastern driveway leading to the extended stay. This is one way in and one way out. So this exit faces up against the incoming traffic. So that's a little bit of question. And then here is a pedestrian connection from the Magnolia Square. And then we're talking about pedestrian connection from this side of the Fostoria Way to the north side of Fostoria Way around here. So pedestrian connection from here to there should be somehow provided. And here is exist condition looking just behind the monument sign is probably somewhere like here. And this is the northwest corner of the existing parking lot. And in the staff discussion, we're talking about making this portion of the existing parking lot as the landscape extension or buffer extension along Fostoria Way. And here is the eastern driveway leading to the extended stay. And those are the 2 oak trees to be removed. And this portion will be altered to widen this intersection. And then this photo is taken just at the exit point. The next slide will show you this curve here from opposite direction, which is this. So if you come around from the eastern entryway and you look into the building, which becomes the new gas station canopy and all that. So that's the bulk of the design and the site changes. And then architectural design has been, as well as the sign design has been described in the staff report. So at this point, I'd like to lead you to those discussion of those 3 subjects: canopy design and signs, site improvements and landscape design, and public art. So which are addressed in staff report.
Before we get to those items, maybe we can allow the project applicant to speak or introduce themselves and take public comment.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Anderson from Barghausen Engineers out of Kent, Washington. And with me today, we've got the project team as well, including a landscape architect and traffic engineer. So together we should be able to hopefully address any questions that the board may have. I guess just to introduce the project a little bit more, I'd like to, Shinya, if you could bring us back to just one of the plans that show an overall
site plan.
Yeah.
This one or this one? Can you see that or?
Can't see.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a lag there. Kind of stuck on the discussion slide.
All right, am I sharing the space?
You should still have control.
Okay.
It looks like
this-
nothing's there now.
Okay. Does that make sense?
There we go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. So first thing I'd like to, I guess, just make mention of is before we get into discussion about the site layout is we've been working with both Lauren and Shinya on the development of this site plan because it's been in development under unique circumstances. Basically, we're still working with Office Depot to get full site access. And so a lot of the information we've used goes into the site plan has been based on available as-built information, other title related information, but we still have not been able to get on site to fully complete our site investigation. So I just wanted to the board be aware of that as we go through the concept here. To explain it, the approach that's been taken to this site plan is to place the field facility towards the back of the site in order to avoid disrupting the parking up in the front there and effectively try to leave that frontage area as well as the parking as untouched as we can, aside from the modification that we made to the driveway in order to improve circulation through the site. Circulation through the site, the intention is that vehicles would be coming off of Astoria Way and then take a right into that shared drive area and then take a left in order to make their way back into the queuing area towards the south end of the site or the plan west. And then for those who aren't completely familiar with the Costco gas station, it's a single direction concept. So all vehicles will enter the queuing area together and head in the northern direction or plan east through the dispensers, and then exit back down at the exit point to the northeast corner of the actual fuel area, which would then provide access back out into the driveway for members to then leave. Fuel deliveries will occur in the back of the site where the fuel tanks are located, and this layout would allow for the fuel truck to make its way in through the site, drop its fuel in the back of the queuing area to avoid disrupting member queuing as much as possible, and then again use the same circulation out through the exit area to leave the site. Those are really the key aspects of, I guess, the layout worth mentioning at this point. As far as operations go and the flow of member vehicles to and through the site. So I'll leave it there for now. In case I miss anything, we'll address it if there's any comments that come up.
Thank you. Back to the board.
So any public comments?
All right, let me take a peek here. So public comment is open. If you would like to speak on this item, feel free to press the raise your hand button on your computer or *9 on your phone. And so far, I don't see anyone. So I think we can go ahead and move forward unless you'd like to give them another moment.
I'd say let's go ahead and move on.
Okay, so if there are no raising of hands from the public, let's proceed with board comments. So any comments you want to start? Warren or Dave?
Mark and I start first. I've got 2% on my iPad.
Okay, sure.
So I may lose you guys. If so, I apologize. It's plugged in and everything, but I'm still losing percentages.
Okay.
Basically, I don't have a lot of comments, but I think the back corner that you face the CMG Plaza, you might want to see if you could landscape that in a way. They're going to look out from their second, third floors and look down on you a little bit. Yeah, down on this back corner. Other than that, I think the plant palette is reasonable. We overuse the Lagostromia, but I understand. I think the oaks that have been chosen are probably better than the native oaks. They'll tolerate the conditions there pretty well. I think I would look at the ground cover and use grasses and other things, that are appropriate in this area. I don't see them now, so I trust that you can find those. The canopy is rather big and monolithic, but it sort of is what it is. Dealt with these before. I think the proportion of the facade part to it is reasonable. Usually I like to look at a little stronger visual support for such a big floating element, but again, it's not particularly visible. I wonder why you have as many parking stalls as you do. Are those for crossing the street to go to Costco mothership or not? Because normally there's quite a bit of parking. You guys can tell me why that's there. If it is there for parking for other retail, then I guess it's the same comment. How does one get across Fostoria Way? And other than that, to me, I think it's rather invisible, so I'm not going to ask a lot of it. I still have 2%, so I'll hang around as long as I can. Thanks, Mark, for letting me go first.
Great.
So to build on David's comment, the parking, the miscellaneous parking, that's the balance left over, is that really the spillover from the retail at Magnolia and surrounding hotel, or is that now going to be overflow parking for Costco?
Existing parking will be the overflow for Costco customers and then employees.
Okay, so
Actually, I might
that's-
jump in to clarify. The intention of that additional parking is actually for employee use. So right now, the design is not intended to, for instance, accommodate the big carts coming across the street full of goods and things like that. It's solely going to be reserved for employee use, which will then free up parking by the warehouse, which is better placed for members to access.
So is there an enhanced pedestrian access for those users to somehow get across Fostoria, or do they go to the corners?
That's being looked at as we speak, and we are evaluating the best way to provide a safe direct connection for employees between the warehouse and this parking.
Good.
And the only comment too on the circulation is the question of having the cars come in via the one-way traffic arrows, passing through a load of parking at the west side. Not sure if that's the best use of that parking, if cars might back up into, for people having to back in and out of that space, but if it's for employees, maybe it's not a problem. I'm just questioning the aisle of parking that you have to drive through to get to the south side. If maybe there's no parking on one side, you can keep the parking towards the interior, but maybe not sure if that's well use of having parking. People can't back in and out if there's a line of cars waiting.
Right.
Just a comment on that. If that's something just to meet the standard parking requirements for the site, I get it. I'm not sure if it should be redesigned or if there's any other way to design it, really, by that matter.
Yeah, it's something that we can take a second or closer look at with our traffic engineer, but because it will be employee parking, we don't anticipate a large volume of frequent movements as you'd expect with retail used spaces. Employees will come onto their shift, be there for a number of hours, and then when they get off shift, leave. So we'll evaluate that with the team though, and make sure that we're taking a good close look at it in terms of how those spaces will be used. And
I'm not sure if it's a single file, you can have two cars, we eliminate that aisle. You have two lanes there for cars to get in, one way, or have a wider landscape strip there rather than a line of cars on the west side. Perhaps there's opportunity to not single file of cars there, you can have two if you eliminate that row of parking if it's not needed. Again, I have to be sensitive to the parking requirements. That's the case.
I will note that the way that the facility is designed right now in the queuing area, it does have quite a bit of space to contain the expected volume of member vehicles. And then in addition, the facility itself with the 16 dispensers is designed to efficiently process those members. So right now, the way it's being viewed, it's not anticipated you're going to have a line of cars backing up that far. This is going to be a very efficient facility, and there's plenty of queue storage already provided. So if that were to happen, it would be a very rare occurrence to see a line go all the way back and start blocking those stalls. But again, that's something we'll make sure that we're being very conscious about.
Mark?
Yes. Go ahead.
More, I'm a regular Costco user and customer, and I've been many times thwarted in trying to find parking spaces there. I think there will be an unintended use of this parking lot by non-employees as well. I think there'll be I don't know about full shopping carts crossing Fostoria, but I think that it would be, even for employees, it would be really desirable to get direct access across Fostoria. And that might mean using a push button, pedestrian crossing, and perhaps reconfiguring that broad turning radius that comes in where the existing oak is. I don't know if it currently has that broad of a radius coming in, but it's that is where you would want to cross, I think, to handle the unintended pedestrian crossing there. And it's just almost a problem waiting to happen with this parking lot becoming a Costco parking lot.
Yeah, understood. And I'd say we agree as well. That, again, this is a unique situation in terms of the life of this site plan because of circumstance we're under, access and all arrangements and all that to be able to get on site and do all of our early site investigations. So that corner is definitely being looked at, and that pedestrian access directly to the warehouse again is being looked at. If you have any specific questions, we do have our traffic engineer on mute at the moment, who is the one that's currently evaluating that area to come up with the best solution. But again, direct safe access is definitely the intent and is part of what we're evaluating as we go through this process.
Through the chair,
Yes,
Mark.
yes.
So I just want to make sure that we give ourselves enough time to get through all of our comments this afternoon.
Yes.
So if we could perhaps just wrap up any additional comments we have on site design. I know I got some comments on landscape design, but if we could just go through site design and then get to canopy design.
Yes, so any more questions on site design? Warren, did you have any comments?
Yeah, just one. My comment is the concern of the site design with queuing. And the concern is this entry here. As more and more people are going to discover this back entryway, I understand that you have about 9 cars queuing here. I don't know what your queuing rate is here. In the size of your lot, I do agree with you that there will be a fair amount of queuing available. It's the fender benders here from people that I worry about the most and sort of endangering the public. Is there any thought of closing this off?
As far as closing off, it's actually a shared easement that's currently exists between the 2 properties to the side. So at the moment, it needs to be there. And
for fire access?
I'll be honest. I believe it's just for cross access when the development originally occurred with Office Depot. But the intent is to keep it at the moment. We do have our traffic engineer available to maybe speak to some of the volume questions that you're raising and provide their insight on that particular area. Amy, do you be able to join us and maybe speak to that?
I would just add also that there is a queuing analysis that's being assessed by the traffic engineer, and we're reviewing it against city standards. So it's not something that's being ignored. It is part of the review process beyond site plan and architecture.
Okay. Any other comments on site? We can move on to the canopy design. Okay. Well, if I don't hear any, let's move on to the canopy design. And my comment is it's such a large area it's covering to capture the whole extent of the volume of cars we need to cover. It's really top heavy and it's a large horizontal structure. Was there some other options to look at? Probably integrating some solar panels so it breaks just one mass. Probably it's some similar concept that we see in the parking lots of corporate offices and even school parking lots where we can stagger lean-to canopies so it breaks it up and you can get some light in between. I don't know, it's just a suggestion. I think I understand Costco has a standard, but I thought I'd just throw it out there to see if that was even thought of, to integrate even solar panels with the design of this canopy. That's the only comment I have. I think it can be broken up so that the openings face north. And so you have a sawtooth kind of design, which creates some nice clear story in between, so it keeps it light and not so heavy.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand the second part of that comment with the breaking up. Are you talking about the fascia or are you talking about the canopy itself?
The canopy itself is just another option to look at versus just one big monolithic.
Right.
I get it with a gas station, it's smaller, but this is such a massive.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah. There's kind of two things there I think that can help provide some insight on the solar panel topic. This has come up on occasion for the gas station because of, as you mentioned, the size of the canopy seems like it would be sufficient, but in previous evaluations of incorporating solar into the gas canopy itself, it's just found it to be problematic, one, to install it onto the canopy structure itself, but two, the actual benefit really hasn't shown itself yet, simply because even though it's a big canopy, it's not large enough in terms of surface area to really collect the kind of power that would benefit the site. So typically we just haven't found it to be a beneficial addition to the canopy. And as far as the design of it, there's a practical purpose to its shape and function. In addition to providing just coverage to the members in terms of keeping them out of the elements, the sun, the rain, whatever. We do also have to design the canopy in a way that protects the under canopy area for as far as stormwater is concerned. And so there's some pretty strict guidelines that we have to operate within to make sure the under canopy area is sufficiently protected and contained. And those are, that's really the reasons that drive the canopy to look the way it does for this kind of layout.
Any comments from other board members?
Yeah, I have some, Mar, if I may. This is Warren.
Go ahead, Warren.
I understand what you're talking about with the look of the metal canopy and all of that. I think the problem that I have with it, it's utilitarian, it's efficient, it's standard. And you're going into a neighborhood, into a commercial area that in San Ramon is being developed into more, trying to be developed into more of a prominent emblem of San Ramon. So this is something that we need to treat not as a utility, but an opportunity. And as of right now, it seems like it is purely utilitarian and functional. I think because of the shape of it, it is being suspended by thin columns that make it look as though it is very spindly on the sort of visual sense of it. And the thing I think I would like to see is, I would like to see it grounded more to the or at least visually transfer the mental load of the mass of the canopy down to the ground. Because as of right now, it looks as if it were is suspended on toothpicks. If every other column, and if there was a larger column here, I could foresee at the front and the back some sort of enhancement, maybe a trim piece that comes out and travels around and travels back and gives you a sort of sense along the building that creates a sort of grip and or brings the visual load of the space down. And it doesn't have to be at everyone. It could be at either end, and the middle can sort of fade away. But I think for where this is going in San Ramon and the location of it, it's going to be, it needs to be a little bit more than utilitarian. One of the items down that a gas station that is a good example of this is the gas station there at the Bernal cross, or the Bernal and Pleasanton, right across the street from the Safeway. That one has a good use of a canopy at minimal enhancements that could be considered here. It just seems like this, it's too functional, for lack of better terms. It needs to be enhanced more for its location and prominence. Understanding that it's going to be blocked from the trees, but the fact that it's where it is located, that entire area of Santa Ramon is looking to be redeveloped in the nearish future. But we need to make sure that all the elements going in the future need to be enhanced as well.
Okay, understood.
Good points you brought up, Warren, and I second to your points. And another good example would be a recent one that was built, a small one, over in North Canyon, the hydrogen station. We came up with a proposal where we had small, thin supports and was beefed up to give it more of some grounding and wrapped in some brush metal finish. So it gives it more than just your utilitarian look. So I think some of those enhancements and somehow to break this big horizontal mass would be something to look at.
Yep.
Any other comments from anyone so we can move on to the next? And as far as anything on signage? Any other comments in general?
I did have one more. I was looking at the site plan and more specifically the landscape plan. Shinye, can you go to, where's that sheet? I guess sheet, it's labeled D11-18A on mine, or if that's the project. Yeah, 18A. Oh, that's fine too. This one's good.
It's fine.
One thing that I have seen on other Costco's is this utilitarian office. It seems like it has, if you could, with that, put a 1 foot to 18-inch landscaping strip around the building and let an ivy climb it, it will help improve and enhance that building by covering more of it with greenery. And so you have a wonderful sea of landscape here. And it would be great to see that building, rather than stick out like a brown stick in the mud, it'd be great if it was covered and enhanced with greenery surrounding it. Because, can you bring up the elevations of that building, please, Shinye?
Is this the one?
Yeah, this, oh, the other one, you just add up. Yeah, 72, please.
This
Yeah, you have these large blank areas that allow for the oops.
Oops.
It's
Sorry.
okay. That's okay. Yeah, especially on the backside, you have these long linear spots. So you can do very subtle things with the landscaping. I know this needs to be accessed, but it'd be great if you could have plants or any sort of, for lack of a better term, green growies. Make it just so it's not such a metal box on the and utilitarian on the side. That would allow for a little bit more enhanced building. That way you don't have to add anything else to the building, because I think these are pretty much prefabricated and dropped into place, but then you allow for enhancement of the space by putting planting around it.
Through the chair. So we're just checking the clock here right now. It's about 4:10. So I just wanted to just make sure we capture all of our comments here, and then hopefully can summarize this and get a final recommendation.
So there's another item, public art. There's an existing location there, as I understand. Is there a comment from any board members?
None.
Okay. So why don't I go ahead and summarize, and then if any other comments you need to add.
Excuse me. Let's see. Do I have my hand raised here?
You do.
I wanted to make some landscape comments.
Okay.
Okay, because we've skipped over. I mean, we've moved past that. If I can ask for this real quickly, I think in the case of the landscape plan here, I think the palette is acceptable, but I think that the sycamore, I think there's the need to keep the plant material that is on site that is of good quality, and that includes the sycamores along Fostoria instead of inserting the new Shumard oaks. Just leave the sycamores alone in that area. Also along the magnolia frontage, leave the pears alone. There's really not a need to change species there. I think on the either side of the Costco, I think the proposed plants are of good quality. The northern parking lot should not be, I don't think that the large bur oak, even though it's a narrow variety of it, I think it's going to end up destroying the narrow planting islands that are there. Better to just keep the crepe myrtles that are already in that parking lot. And really what's needed here to do this properly is a tree survey needs to be prepared, and that needs to lead to a new and corrective landscape plan, as well as a corrective irrigation plan, in order to bring the new and the old all together and provide a proper foreground to this service station. That's it.
Okay.
All right, Cindy, do you want to summarize what you have?
Yep. So real quickly, on the site layout, first comment was related to the western parking area and the potential for vehicular conflicts with vehicles backing out of the space and the drive aisle that's leading to the pumps. So needing to take a closer look at that potential conflict there. The second comment was related to the pedestrian access flow from the project site to the Costco warehouse to the north. We need to take a closer look at opportunities for a safe pedestrian crossing. And then that potentially customers may be using shortcuts via the cross access easements, and that the traffic study should take those into consideration when evaluating whether or not they'll have conflicts within the queuing area to the pumps. Then on the canopy design, the board's recommendation is to break up the monolithic canopy so that it doesn't appear so massive. The design is very utilitarian and functional, and the board would recommend enhancements such as increasing the width of the support beams, including some additional materials to break up the utilitarian feel of the design. That there may be some enhancements that can be done either under the canopy and make the base of the canopy just feel more grounded. And then we moved into landscaping on the southeastern property line, that there's additional opportunities to enhance the southeastern landscaping there, possibly adding more grasses. And then that the sycamore and pear trees are fine in the plant palette, but there's a need to do a tree survey and provide a new and corrective landscape and irrigation plan. And then one last comment was related to the that smaller utility room, that there's additional landscaping that can be done around that building facade to soften the appearance of that building. Any other comments? If not, I'll take a motion for a recommendation for final architecture review to the Planning Commission.
So I ask for a motion, Jen?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I motion that we proceed forward with this project with the comments that that Cindy just summarized.
A second.
Okay. And I believe, did David step away? It looks like he's gone. So I'll go ahead and do a roll call. We have mover, Chair Goxiang Fiao.
Aye.
We have seconder, board alternate Nickel.
Aye.
And board member Fujimura.
Aye.
All right, and David Gates is away. So it
He's
does
back.
pass.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
voted yes, by the way.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh, good. You're here.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You're back. You're back. Okay. So
So-
David Gates, that's a yes.
That's a yes.
Fantastic.
All right, passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you, board, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as we're moving into our third and final item this afternoon, I just wanted to let
I'm
the
going to
board
use
know-
myself. Sorry. I'm going to leave. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks, David.
Thank you, David.
Thank
All
you.
right.
As we get into the third item, I just wanted to let you know that we are running a bit short on time because we have this is streaming on YouTube, and we need to actually there's another meeting that's scheduled directly after our meeting. And so if we can work towards keeping our comments and wrapping up the meeting by 4:45, that would be really helpful for us to finish all of the items that we have this afternoon.
And I recommend that we have just a 2-minute bio break. Or,
We have a,
okay,
I'm fine with that if you need to step away for
we've been sitting, I guess, over 2 hours, so
yes.
should I just go ahead and I'll
Okay,
just-
so should we go ahead and just take a recess and we can pause for a moment?
Sure.
yeah, like a 3-minute recess?
Okay.
Thank you.
Jen, you're still streaming on YouTube.
Okay. I know I have I've paused the recording. I just don't know how to.
I can't pause the stream.
Okay, I figured as much.
So just FYI.
Okay. So everyone's aware.
Mhm.
Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome.
That was needed.
Reminder, this is still streaming on YouTube, so please mute your microphones until the meeting's been called back.
Thank you.
Okay, so Jen, I know I see all of our members back.
Yep.
If we want to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, if everyone is ready to go, I'll go ahead and let me just make sure I am recording now. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move into item 9.3, Camp Bow Wow Development, staff report by Ryan Driscoll, Associate Planner.
Good afternoon. Let me share my screen real quick here. Hold on. Okay, can you see the plans?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll be going through this a little quicker, try to get through the staff report quicker. This is for Camp Bow Wow development located at 2040 Freer Preserve Parkway. A little bit of background. It's an existing 0.60 acre vacant parcel created in 1998 through a minor subdivision. And it's recently been vacant, but prior to that, it was a vehicle tow yard. In December 2018, the applicant received comments from the Planning Commission for a development plan conceptual review application for this project. And then in September of 2019, the applicant submitted the proposed project before you today with the applications that have been prepared and revised based on the comments from the Planning Commission. So the project would construct a new 8,280 square foot single story building with a 21 space parking lot and landscape. And it would be for animal services, boarding, training, land use, which would be for Camp Bow Wow, with various dog services, including overnight boarding, daycare, training, and grooming. It'd be up to 86 dogs overnight at any one time, and then 138 dogs during the day at any one time. The project also includes about an 1,100 square foot fenced outdoor dog play area located just to the south of the proposed building along the south property line. And the project also includes two minor exception applications, one to reduce the required 5 foot wide perimeter landscape width that's required by the Crow Canyon specific plan. That would be reducing it from 5 feet down to 2 feet 1 inch. And that's at the northeast corner of the property. Let me move the mouse here, hold on. In this area right here. And then there's also minor exception to allow a 5 foot high retaining wall for 28 lineal distance area right here on the southwest area of the property. Just a minute. So this property has, there's an offer of dedication on this property to dedicate the 30 feet on the northern property line, that's this area here, to the proposed Faria Preserve Parkway that's under construction. And just a moment, sorry. Just a second. And it would dedicate the project site would be reduced along that property line and reduce the site. The project would also vacate and quitclaim a number of roadway and utility easements on the property with this. For the building architecture, change it here. They're proposing a modern contemporary commercial design with a flat roof and a parapet fully screening the rooftop equipment. The exterior materials include an EIFS finish with a 1-inch reveal, painted a Sherwin-Williams balanced beige color for the body color, and then also a 5-foot high accent band with a Sherwin-Williams peppercorn color. There'll be an exposed foundation wall and a custom aluminum entrance canopy. Signage will be on the north elevation as shown here, which is the front elevation. They don't have specific designs for the signs at the moment, but they'll be provided at a later date. In terms of landscape, let me go back. The landscape plan would meet with the state model water efficient landscape requirements and the on-site stormwater requirements. There is also a site lighting plan that provides 8 16-foot tall parking lot light poles and 6 wall-mounted lights on the proposed building. In terms of the land use and development standards for this property is in the commercial services offices zoning district designated by the Crow Canyon specific plan. And there's a development standards summary table in the staff report. The project would meet with all the comply with all the development standards required for this site and this proposal, with the exception of the 2 minor exceptions that have been discussed and mentioned. In terms of building architecture, go back. The architecture designs consistent with the surrounding commercial character and service commercial building architecture with the flat roof and screened rooftop equipment. Staff does have a few concerns, however, with the visual interest of the architectural design. Specifically, some of the building colors could be a little more dynamic. Some facade treatments like metal siding could be provided to enhance the visual interest. The aluminum entrance canopy could be further integrated with the style of the design of the building. And some of the window sizes and placements, particularly on the north or front elevation, could provide some additional variation or modifications to enhance the interest there. In terms of signage, staff supports the proposed signage location as long as it complies with the zoning ordinance requirements. In terms of landscape, staff supports the proposed landscape. Let me go to the landscape plan. This is the site landscape plan, but staff is recommending that the proposed landscape plan be integrated. Let me zoom in here into this. This is the roadway landscape plan for Faria Preserve Parkway. And I think it was just recently installed, or it may not be completely finished, but staff is recommending that the proposed site landscaping be integrated with this landscaping. We would recommend that they would maintain the existing street trees that have been provided on this plan, and they may need to be relocated to be in a more appropriate location based on the site landscape plan. And In terms of site lighting for the property, staff supports the proposed site lighting with a revision, though, that the light poles be relocated to be outside the 2-foot bumper overhang requirement to maintain a 19-foot parking space depth. So staff has provided a number of discussion topics and questions for you to use as a guide. I can take questions from the board to myself, and I would also like to introduce actually the applicant and property owner, Adrian Kaler, and he may bring in additional people to provide answers to questions from the board as you discuss this project.
Thanks, Ryan. In the interest of time, I'm actually not going to have any opening statement. Happy to answer any questions. Glad everyone stuck around. Thank you. And I'll turn it back over.
Public comments?
Okay, Mar, do you want to go ahead and open public comment? Sorry, you're still muted. There we
Okay,
go.
on the floor to public comments, if any. Are there any?
Okay, so real quick, I don't see anyone in the audience who looks like public commenter. So what I'll do, I do have a written comment for the Camp Bow Wow development. I'll go ahead and read that for the record now. Dear board members, I'm a homeowner at the Preserve in San Ramon and would be negatively impacted by the presence of Camp Bow Wow that is being built near Faria Preserve Parkway. I'm sure my neighbors would agree on the following concerns, which is why a number of us are currently opposed to this development. Noise concerns. 24/7 daytime and nighttime noise created by 125 dogs barking may reach our neighborhood, especially during quiet early morning hours. Traffic concerns. Camp Bow Wow typically sees peak traffic between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. as families drop pets off and between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. during daycare pickup. This could create a lot of traffic impacting our community during commute hours. Odor concerns. The smell of urine and feces of 125 dogs at the base of our hill, which could potentially create a public and private nuisance if it travels uphill. Outdoor events. Camp Bow Wow would plan to hold outdoor events on Saturdays or Sundays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for a grand opening and for up to 3 adoption charity events per year. Again, this would create high traffic volume in our neighborhood and immediate area, not to mention the increased presences of dogs in the area could create increased liability for dog attacks and dog bite situations. Thank you for listening to my concerns. Best regards, Peter Bade. So at this time, I don't see any other public comments or public commenters in the audience. So I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Mar, if you want to close public comment.
Yes, let's go ahead and close the public comment and go right into the discussion topics sensitive to time. If I can open up to the board, let's start with site layout. In general, does the board support the proposed site layout and vehicle pedestrian circulation? Any comments to the site plan from anyone?
None for me.
Looks like Warren.
No, none for me.
Okay.
None for me.
All right, thank you. With that, then we can move into building architecture. For me, I just have just very general comments. I don't think building in its context with the site, with adjacent buildings, I think the massing and the size is in keeping, consistent with the surrounding buildings. However, and doesn't require the 360-degree philosophy in the design of the elevations. However, I believe the front elevation facing north to Faria Parkway is something that needs attention. First of all, material-wise, I think it needs to be softened up. Maybe, I don't know if you want to introduce, right now it's just a raised band of colored contrasting paint and light colored paint. Introducing another material, whether it's a wood plank to soften the building. And then another thing is the fenestration. To me, it has no rhyme or reason. I'm sure it works with the layout of the interior, but somehow it needs attention of how all the various punch-out windows come in context with this horizontal building. And another comment I have is the entryway, the gable concept seems off from the look of the building, and it needs to be relooked at. Maybe some metal horizontal structure as a canopy and something with beefier support that frame the entrance. As far as the signage, I'm okay with the signage where it's located. Other than that, any other comments to add from the other board members?
Yes, I have one. This is Warren, or not one, should say I want to reiterate some of the ones that you have commented on, Mar. It seems like the building, it fits into the context that is currently there, but understanding what's coming in the future for that area, we're, as San Ramon is looking to develop that area, turn it into another destination hub. And this is looking to be a pretty solid building. So it would be better if it fit into the context of that in the future looking forward. So it is more enhanced on the front. Right now, the racing stripe of the gray across the front really doesn't enhance the front. It gives it a little bit of accent. It gives it a belly band, but it doesn't enhance the building in a interesting or a modern contemporary way. It would be better if it was, like Mar had said, it would be a good opportunity to bring in some other materials. It would be better to not maybe just have a straight line. You can do an angled line, you can do shapes, you could do geometric forms in the building. You know, there are other things that can be done. It just seems like with this, someone has plopped down the standard can't bow wow into San Ramon, and that's not what we need here. We need something a little bit more unique because it's at the foothill of the Preserve, which is a new complex for housing in San Ramon, and it's going to be part of the gateway into this. And we need to make sure that the new buildings go into it are not as iconic as those, but at least more enhanced than what we have seen on the sheet.
Thanks, Warren. Any other architectural comments? John?
No.
Okay. Signage. Any other comments to signage? The mass, the size and location?
No.
Why don't we move into landscape? Does the landscape provide appropriate species selection and sufficient quantities, sizes, and variety of plant materials?
Hand raised. John here. Oh, great.
Yes,
thank you.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you for putting up the landscape plan. The landscape that's along, I call it Faria, but it appears that it is Purdue Road now.
Yeah, it's mislabeled there.
Is that correct?
No, it's Faria. It's
Oh,
Faria.
it's Faria. Okay, okay. It's newly planted. I think that the staff has summarized it very well. What the goal is there is to keep the tree planting scheme that's out there in front of this facility. It's the red buds. There's 4 red buds, 2 on either side of the driveway. It's going to be pinched on the downhill or eastern corner there, not only because of the parking lot, but because of the light standard that's there as well. So my recommendation, looking at this landscape plan, is let the applicants' parking lot trees shift away from the frontage and gain more shade by being along the east and west frontages or east and west sides of the parking lot. There may be the possibility to apply one of these new trees in the at the northeast excuse me, at the northwest corner there. Yeah, away from the light standard, where there's a little more room. And the red buds are not located there currently. Okay, on site, I have the following comments. Delete the, in the plant palette, delete the Carissa. It's a frost, quite frost tender plant, and consider instead using the Lamandra breeze or Berkeley sedge. The next would be to delete the dwarf pittosporum and consider using something more upright like Dietes bicolor. The third species recommendation is to change the festuca. That's a fescue, a low grass, and it's the trim plant that you can see along the Faria Parkway side of the parking lot. And with the 5-foot wall on the east side in that corner point there, there's quite a bit of grade change there that will be taking place there. And I believe there's overhanging parking, the front of parked cars. I think I'm correct there, Ryan, that there's going to be a 2-foot overhang of vehicles?
Yes. Well, let me go to the site plan real quick. Hold on.
Okay. I think I can encapsulate it in words fairly well here. I think the goal there would be to have some shrub or even hedge material that is approximately 3 feet high to tuck the parked automobiles into a landscape framework.
Yeah, there is a 2-foot bumper overhang here and here.
Right. So just to accomplish that goal, to look at the plant arrangement and the species along the frontage there in order to tuck the cars, embed them in planting, and maintain the continuity of the Faria Parkway strip, which would be the redbud trees and the low grass ground cover. And then I think you've got it. The only other thing I question is how to sort out who maintains what. Would there be a mow strip or some other band element there that identifies the parcel versus the continuous corridor? That would be the only thing to look into to sort that out. It could be an in-grade curb strip, if you will. Frequently it's done with a header, but this may want to be a more permanent feature. And of course, it would have its own separate irrigation plan, I would assume.
Yes, we can talk to our engineering department about that.
Okay, other than that, looks good.
Any other comments on landscape? If not, we can go into site lighting. I'm not sure if anyone reviewed the photometric plan. Is it appropriate in terms of light fixture selection and design? I have no comments.
I have no comments.
Nor do I.
With that, we can go into a summary. Cindy, did you want to summarize comments?
I can summarize comments. I just wanted to give a real brief opportunity if the applicant had any comments related to the building architecture or landscape comments that were provided, if you understood all of the suggestions there.
May I make a suggestion real quick before we get that? For example, of my comments, if you look at for the buildings we reviewed on Hooper Drive on this along the same area, that would be something that would be in alignment, I think, that of what I was talking about.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
So I took notes, but I will definitely defer to Matt and Tom, our civil and our architect respectively, if they have any questions on that feedback that we need to go over here, or if that's something the staff would provide later.
This is Matt Lissack with Kinley Horn, the civil on the project in landscape. I just asked if you could summarize the plant recommendations in the ARB summary notes, just so that we can make sure we update that palette accordingly. But otherwise, straightforward.
And we're happy to make the changes. We want this to fit in and be a little more seamless. So the specifics are great.
Great. So I'll go ahead and summarize the comments that I've received from the board. There were no comments related to site layout, signage, or site lighting. Moving into building architecture, on the front elevation, the board recommended that there was a need for greater attention to detail and enhancements. Introduce enhancements such as additional building materials, and the straight line horizontal band that's currently on that front elevation. There may be a more stylized opportunity there to create greater accents on that front elevation. And so just some additional details necessary on that front elevation to further enhance the architecture of the building. There is also a comment related to the fenestration, that there's a need for more attention to detail on the fenestration. And then the entry point, the entryway, that the gable concept doesn't seem to match the architecture. You're looking for a hardier support structure on those beams, and potentially a horizontal canopy that would closer match the architecture of the building. Were there any other comments on building architecture that the board wanted to add?
It is just one general comment. There's a lot of solutions to these more rectangular box buildings. And if you drive along 29 towards Napa, a lot of these tilt-up buildings or just painted buildings that are enhanced with other materials. And I think a popular material now is the wood plank look, whether it's at the base or if it just takes the whole corner of the building to contrast with the gray paints and whatnot to break the horizontal band. It's something that gives it the sort of the flavor of Napa, but I think with the Faria Parkway, I think Warren brought a good point. We're consistent with surrounding buildings that were built in the 70s and 80s, but we're not going to duplicate that. We want to, any new projects on Faria Parkway should be enhanced at the front elevation, because this is going to be a main drive. So that's all comments I have to add.
Okay. And I know Warren also mentioned the architecture on Hooper Drive, that would be another opportunity to look for some architectural inspiration there. Thank you. And then related to landscaping, the first comment was related to applicant parking lot trees, shifting away from the frontage and to the east and west sides of the parking lot. That there was opportunities to add a tree to the northwest corner. Also to delete the Clarissa, and instead introduce a Lamandra or Berkeley sedge. There was also a comment about deleting the dwarf pittosporum and replacing with a Dietes. Also, variety, and then changing the fescue, that perhaps a shrub on the hedge, or a hedge on the northern elevation, approximately 3 foot high, could be planted to help tuck the cars in the parking lot behind it. And then looking at an opportunity to identify the right-of-way and private property landscaping. So just a way to delineate between those two. Were there any other comments?
We're running out of time.
So thanks for the summary, Cindy. Based on your summary, I motion that we move forward with the project with the comments. So I guess we need a roll call.
Okay, let's get a seconder first, and then I'll do a roll call.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a mover is Chair Go-Siang-Fiao.
Aye.
A seconder, we have alternate Nickel
Aye.
and board member Fujimura.
Aye.
All right, and David Gates is away, so it still passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so
Thank
we
you.
could go ahead, we'll move on to item 10, staff items.
So I don't have any items scheduled for our next meeting. We will certainly let the board know if there's any items that come up, and more than likely will be a teleconference meeting.
Okay, so does that mean we can adjourn?
Yep, 11,
The
item
meeting is
11 is
adjourned
adjournment, so go
at
ahead.
12:49.